We just got over with our Evel Days, 15th annual one, I believe. It was a success as far as it goes for law enforcement. We had roughly 29 arrests. This compares to last year. Basically, last year I think we had 32. We had a lot less calls for service, about 100 less calls for service, 150 less calls for service this year than we had last year, which means calls that we respond on. Doesn't mean all those calls are up in the Evel Days area. That's all over the city, but we were a little bit less busy that way. We had officers again on foot patrol in the areas. They did put stops to fights that were occurring. We had, I believe, 6 arrests for disorderly conduct in the area, and most of those were fights that were just getting ready to start or that had started and we broke up.
One thing I saw that seemed pretty significant was an increase in DUIs.
We did have quite a bit increase in DUIs arrests this year. I think the High Patrol had their traffic squad in town. They made several of those arrests. I think they had roughly 7 arrests for DUIs, where our department had about 5.
And that's much more than last year.
Much more than last year.
What do you think was the just?
You know, I don't know. I'm looking at last year's booking records from last year. The DUIs were all beach summer boat DUIs, and I didn't get through them all, but it looks like we had about 3. I'm not sure if the High Patrol had their squad in last year or not, and that might have been the reason for the increase in arrests or whatever.
Did Evel Days seem as crowded this year compared to last year? Do you think that's why that maybe calls were down?
I don't think we had as many people as last year. Again, they were without their 2 big stunts this year. They didn't have a huge stunt going on. They did have Evel's grandson jumping up on Grand Street on Saturday night, and I guess that was packed. Talking to the officers that worked that night, it was busy. The streets were busy. There was quite a few people out and about, but it was just a little less busy than last year in the uptown area.
And how would you assess the event from a security standpoint?
From a security standpoint, it was a success. We had some hiccups early on, like we normally do on the big events. Things get changed last minute that we have to deal with. But other than that, it went off pretty smoothly. I mean, there was some windy weather on Friday that I think canceled some of the stunts, but other than that, it was good.
And the overall behavior of the crowds and the mood out there.
Night again, when you got a crowd that large, 5,000 people or so, when you're only making 20 arrests, that's less than 1% of the people. So it's pretty good. I mean, that means 99% of the people are behaving themselves and are just out to have a good time.
How does this compare to a regular weekend?
I did compare it to last weekend, and I think we only had 11 arrests last week. So it doubles, pretty much, maybe almost triples our workload on that aspect of it. But again, you've got a lot more people uptown.
Do you think there's any particular reason why the calls may have been down? You said you did stop. What were the biggest things that you the most arrests?
The most arrests were either DUIs or DUIs with 11 and disorderly conducts. I think we had 60 disorderly conduct arrests, which is pretty low for disorderly. I think the year before we had 10 disorderly arrests. So, better officers try to put a stop to things first and calm down. The bars are very cooperative with us now. I mean, we used to go to bars, and when we first started closing the bars down, they used to not like that idea, but they're used to it. In fact, they're usually closed prior to our officers going inside and not